at UNC Charlotte in North Carolina. Riley Howell died protecting his peers from the shooter. Unfortunately, the death of students and faculty aren't the only problems going on. Surviving the school shooting can give victims PTSD and survivor's guilt. These issues can lead to suicide. In one case, a Parkland survivor, Sydney Aiello, suffered from both of these conditions and committed suicide a year after the shooting. Shootings in general are bloodthirsty attacks perpetrated to instill fear and harm innocent people. Ever since Columbine and Sandy Hook, school shootings have become a regular occurrence seen in the news. Society is becoming numb to children being slaughtered. Victims and survivors aren't just numbers. They are human beings. Sorry.
You're okay. You're good.
There has been little to no effort put forth by the government to protect schools, youth, and teachers from this disgusting act of violence that is becoming an epidemic in America. I'm afraid that one day I'll go to school and I'll never come out. I'm sorry. What actions will you take to protect people like me and my classmates from this happening? I apologize.
No, you're good. Thank you. So I'm glad that you're talking about this in the most personal, powerful terms possible. It's the only way that we're going to get the change that you want and that you deserve and that we need as a country. In the history of the United States, the big things that have happened that needed to happen did not come from people who were already in positions of power or trust. It so often came from young people who forced the issue. We think about the civil rights advances in the 1960s. Though Lyndon Baines Johnson signed them into law, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, it was young people at lunch counters or on Greyhound buses in the Deep South or crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge who made that happen. They forced people in power to do the right thing. You're forcing people in power to do the right thing right now.
This is Beto O'Rourke fielding a question from an 8th grader at Berg Middle School in Newton, Iowa, where the reality of Republican inaction on gun violence is on full display. This student's question was in reference to the shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, where student activists who survived last year's shooting vowed to enact change. It felt finally like a watershed moment in American politics, wherein gun safety reformers might actually strike a blow against the Republican Party and its fetishization of guns over kids. But since then, no meaningful legislation has been passed. There has been a school shooting on average once every 12 days, and a mass shooting once per day. Since 2013, there's been only one full calendar week without a mass shooting in the United States. Most of last year's school shootings occurred in states with lax gun laws, which brings into full view the painfully obvious. More guns and less regulation is not the solution. The United States has 5% of the world's population and more than 40% of the world's guns, and it has 31% of its mass shootings. We have 57 times as many school shootings as the other industrialized countries combined. In other words, we have tried the more guns approach. We've flooded our streets with more weapons. It objectively is not working. The more guns we have, the more dangerous this country is becoming. The numbers simply don't lie, although when it comes to guns, Republicans will. But figures and data only paint so much of the picture. Like the student said, these children are more than just statistics. Republicans in Washington have bucked the will of even their own constituents as they continue to prioritize the proliferation of weapons over children. And they've given every excuse. They claim that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. But this isn't true. During even the Parkland shooting, there was an armed security guard who took up position outside of the school, but didn't manage to do anything during the shooter's 6-minute spree. They claim we need more guns to keep us safe, but with 40% of the world's guns and 31% of the world's mass shootings, that's not an inverse proportion, that's a direct correlation. They claim that any step towards reducing the constant slaughter of kids in schools is a slippery slope toward repealing the Second Amendment and facilitating a socialist takeover. But every single excuse is in bad faith, and they know that. There is only one reason why Republicans continue to prioritize weapons over people, and that's because the gun lobby funds their re-election campaigns. In 2018 alone, the NRA spent over $9 million on lobbying efforts, $5 million in favor of Republicans and $4 million against Democrats. It's the same reason Republicans continue to deny the existence of climate change, while the rest of the human race is working towards solutions for it. The Republican Party is bought and sold. They have quite literally put a few $1,000s above the lives of American kids. It's that simple. Stopping mass shootings isn't hard. Ban assault weapons like other countries have. We don't need weapons of war available to every citizen on every street corner. Stop people with a history of domestic abuse and mental illness and those on terror watch lists from purchasing a firearm. Red flag laws that allow family members and law enforcement to remove firearms from individuals who've exhibited dangerous behavior. Mandatory firearm training like we do for driver's licenses and registration like we do for cars. It shouldn't be easier to buy an AR-15 than to drive a Honda Civic. Mandatory background checks on all firearm sales. Longer waiting periods to buy guns and limit the quantities that someone can purchase at one time. Restrictions on high-capacity magazines. All common sense solutions. All proven to work, to save lives. Now the question becomes whether those lives are worth more to Republican politicians than a check cut by the NRA. And it seems we get our answer to that question every single day.